Okay, welcome to the Healthy Business Podcast. So today I'm joined by the lovely Ria Oliver, who is owner of the Simple Birth Company, and she is a woman very close to my heart of the values that she has of looking after new mums to be, and also kind of maternal health and the importance of that. And I think whether you're running a business, whether you're working, or whether you're juggling everything else, the importance of maternal mental health is something that we all know a lot about, and it's become even more important, I think, over the last year or so, where us mums have been juggling a whole load of things. So Ria, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, it's great to chat to you, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you do first of all.
So, as you said, I'm the owner of the Simple Birth Company. I am a birth mindset and emotional health coach. So I work with both pre and postnatal women to help them overcome like their fears and anxieties and phobias, even in some cases, so that they can lead a little bit more of a balanced life and feel more in control of their journey, more so from a thoughts, feelings and emotions and well-being perspective. I think it's very easy as we kind of transition through that period in our lives that we get pushed to the bottom of the list a little bit. Life changes, your identity changes. There's so much going on as you go make your way through that process. And it's very easy for a lot of things to unravel and for your emotions and your feelings sometimes to not really feel your own. So just helping mums as they make that transition in preparing for birth and the challenges that they go on to face in motherhood. And I do that through my birth preparation courses, which is a mindset focused course. I've got an emotional health course, and I also do birth trauma resolution for those that have had a more difficult birth experience.
So many amazing things in there that we can pick apart and kind of chat on. I know we've only got a relatively short space of time today, but there's so much in there. And I think the importance of maternal health has really become kind of to the forefront, hasn't it, in the last kind of few years, where there is an expectation of us to be juggling lots of things, and that expectation to just be present with everything, whether it's returning back to work, whether it's, you know, being further away from families than sort of what we were years and years ago, where we had that sort of more community support. And yeah, there's definitely that expectation that women can have it all. And yes, absolutely we can, but actually we need to look after ourselves to be able to do that, I think. And that's where you come in. And one of the things that I ask all of my guests on here is, you know, what is a healthy business? And I think part of that is the mental health side of things. So I'd love to delve into that a little bit more, as you know, you're a mum too, aren't you? And you're juggling running a business and three little kids. So yeah, I'd love to hear, you know, what healthy business means to you.
So I think I've been on a bit of a journey with this myself, even over the last, well, I guess probably the last year, really. Like, so much has changed personally and professionally for me since COVID hit. And I think there's an awful lot of mum guilt involved, whether you're working away from home or like me. I'm lucky enough to be able to work at home. So it took a while for me to really figure out how I could give my dedicated time and attention to my kids, which essentially is why I went self-employed in the first place, because I wanted to be there as a mum. I didn't want to miss out on things, and I wanted to be able to have that work-life balance. Whereas I think sometimes when you're employed and you're a mum, that work-life balance tends to tip more so in favour of the employer, because you haven't got the freedom to do what you want to do when you want to do it. So yeah, for me, it has been a bit of a journey. And I definitely felt that mum guilt because I work at home and I'm so accessible all the time when the kids are here, that I had to create little pockets of time where this was my work time and this is my mum time. And I try to do that as much as I can when the boys are at school. Autumn now, she's being looked after by my parents a day a week. And it took me a really long time to get to the point where I felt ready to be able to let her go. Like, she's my baby, she's my last kid. But I'm like, if I can concentrate my time into those moments I've got where the kids aren't here, then it means when they are here, I can give them 100% of my attention. And like I said, that's exactly why I went self-employed in the first place, is that as soon as I had my firstborn, I knew that he was my priority and I wanted to be there for him. But there is this whole raging mum guilt when your focus is slightly diverted onto something else. But then I have to keep bringing myself back to the thing that, like, well, I'm running this business so I can be here, so I can give us the lifestyle that we want to lead and have the experiences that we want to do. So I have to keep reminding myself a lot of the time about why I'm doing what I do. And yeah, making sure that I concentrate my attention into the pockets of time that I do have. But that is a bit of a journey, and it's, you know, it's ever changing because things with the kids change, and when they're at school and when they're not at school, and so it's an ever evolving process that we go through to make sure that I can give both sides my attention. But it can be hard, and you do get that mum guilt a lot of the time that really pushes through and tells you that you're not doing good enough in one area. So yeah, for me, like, I time block at the start of every week, so I know what bits of time I've got where I'm child free, what my most important tasks are to get done in that time, so that I'm as productive as I possibly can be, so that I'm not constantly splitting my attention. But it is a process and quite challenging at times.
It certainly is, isn't it? And I can totally relate to that. And I'm sure everyone listening can probably totally relate to that if they are juggling business and family life and anything else that's going on. And you're so right, though. It's one of the reasons that we became self-employed and that we set up our own businesses was to be there for our children. And I think it's always a dilemma, isn't it? You're always going to get a guilt as to that you're not spending enough time on your business, you're not spending enough time with the children. And it's really hard. I think there is that sort of mental pressure that you want to succeed in both, especially if you've had a previously successful career, to then move into having your own business. You want to be successful at that. But then you've got this different priority that is your children. And that's absolutely fair and just. But yeah, I think having those boundaries, having that specific time for you, for your business, for the children, is really, really key. And it's never as easy as said than that, is it? But actually,
No.
I think one of the things that I've found with kind of running my own business is that if you know what your boundaries are, because you get to make those decisions, you know when you can flex them or not. And giving yourself permission to flex those boundaries is just as important as having those boundaries in place. Like, I love spontaneity. I love being able to be flexible and stuff. But actually, to be productive, to be most efficient with my time, as you said, time blocking is an absolute game changer. You really do get focused on the stuff that you want to. And then that has a positive effect on your mental health, doesn't it? Because you're actually achieving things.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to bring it back to how you help people as well with their sort of prenatal, postnatal journey, because, you know, even if you're not running a business and you're listening to this and thinking, okay, well, time blocking, I'm going back to work or I'm on maternity leave, you can still time block. It is still an effective tool and does help with sort of mental health as well, doesn't it? That sort of positive way of living rather than, you know, kind of feeling really negative and tight inside. But yeah, I'd love to drill down into that sort of emotional well-being and positivity that you kind of help your clients with as well, because I think that's a huge part of being healthy, you know, mentally as well as physically.
Yeah, for sure. I think sometimes one of the biggest barriers that a lot of my clients have when I'm working with them from a well-being perspective is that we just have so much floating around in our heads all the time. Usually that is very negatively focused. It's a lot of negative self-talk. There's lots of things going on that internally that maybe different people have said to us or made us feel certain ways, and we internalize a lot of that and turn it into our own voice. But because we've got it floating around in our heads a lot of the time, we're also not always particularly aware of what that messaging is, but we're giving it to ourselves on a day-to-day basis. So something that I do quite a lot with my clients, which kind of links into the time blocking a little bit, is getting them to journal things. And I know when I first started time blocking, it felt like, oh, that's another task now that I need to add on to my to-do list, which in itself sounds a lot. And the same with journaling. Whenever I recommend it to my clients, it will be a bit like, oh, okay, I've got like homework to do, as it were. But the good thing with writing things down and getting focused in that way is that it helps to bring it out of your head. So there could be, from a business point of view, a million things that I think, well, I really want to do that next week. And if I don't time block it or don't write it down, I very quickly forget what that great idea was. And then I'll sit at my computer and think, I don't know what it was I was going to do today. So it really helps to focus me. And with journaling with my clients, it gets those negative thoughts out of their heads. It helps make them more aware of what's going on internally. And once you become more aware of those internal processes that are happening, it's much easier to start changing those. And, you know, working in emotional health and well-being, obviously a lot of it is very negatively focused. And if we're constantly feeding ourselves very negative messaging, then that is going to impact on everything else that's going on in life. It's going to impact on your business, if you've got one, or your career, the way that you are as a mother, the way that you are as a partner. Like, everything else is impacted if we're not in the right headspace for things. So journaling for them is a very effective tool. It is thought to be a form of meditation as well. So as you write, it just helps you to bring more and more and more things out that you weren't necessarily aware of. But yeah, just being able to organize your thoughts can make such a massive difference. And once you start getting things down on paper and they're in black and white, it's a bit like, again, like you said, with time blocking, it gives you lots of positive feelings because you can see physically what progress you're making. It almost makes those tasks or those negative thoughts that you're having a more tangible and realistic thing when they're out of your head and down on paper. And then when you can see that you're starting to complete the tasks on time blocking, or you're starting to change the way that you're thinking if you're journaling, it gives you that boost of confidence to help keep moving you forward. Whereas if we just stay stuck with everything in our heads, then you never really come out of that place because you're not able to take positive steps forward on the journey that you're on.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. And I think even, you know, this last year has really tested people in so many different ways on that, and sort of being stuck or having to shift things and potentially not having that break between home and work and life boundaries, that it's all been ingrained into one. And you being a business owner, that with 3 little children was, you know, presumably was pretty tricky to find those spaces to time block. But you've done amazingly out of this. And you know, we've been working together in my mastermind, and I think some of the stuff that you've been creating over the last few months has just been incredible to watch you develop your business in a time where a lot of people have been stuck, and you've done that whilst having 3 little children at home. And I think I just want to kind of delve into some of the stuff that you've been doing around, you know, different revenue streams and being able to move stuff online as well. So yeah, share a little bit about how you have continued to grow your business, because I know that a lot of people have been listening to this and thinking it's all well and good, you know, people have got so much extra time to grow their business, but actually it is possible to do it if you're really focused when you haven't got a huge amount of time as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Initially, when COVID hit, I think much like many other people, my initial response was, I'm just going to kind of pack up shop and wait till this all blows over, thinking it was going to be that 12 weeks and then life would be normal again. And because everything I did was in person, face-to-face sessions. So I just thought, okay, well, for the next 3 months, we're just going to be at home, and then I'll pick back up where I was. Now, after, I'd say just a couple of weeks, probably 2 weeks into that first lockdown, I started being contacted by more and more people. And I very quickly realized that obviously doing the work that I do, the fear levels were through the roof. That, you know, there's all the usual worries about birth and motherhood going on. And now this was escalated because people had no idea what was going on. The uncertainty really rocked the boat. You now couldn't have your birth partners with you for any of your scans or going into labour, and people's needs just escalated massively. And so I very quickly put into action a few things. I put out PDF downloads on how to positively prepare for birth during a crisis, all kinds of stuff. And yeah, everything just exploded for me really at that point. My groups grew, my email list grew, just everything got busier and busier and busier. Now, I was really lucky, I guess, initially, because we were in lockdown. My eldest was in nursery at the time, so I didn't have to homeschool then. My middle child was at preschool, so it's all play-based learning anyway at his age. So for me, to start with, that first lockdown period, I felt like I had so much time on my hands because we had amazing weather. So the boys were in the garden all day, every day. And my husband was home as well, which was a massive help. So they'd all be out playing, and I'd be able to pop into the house for an hour and do what I needed to do, and then carry on with life. I say there wasn't really much life going on then, but carry on with being in lockdown. So I had an awful lot of time, and it was so nice through that period that we didn't have restrictions on school runs and getting them to bed at a certain time, and life just felt a bit easier. I mean, there was a lot of fear. I was absolutely petrified. Also, being pregnant at that time, I was worried myself about what it might mean if any of us got COVID, and the impact that it'd have on our household. But life seemed to be a little bit freer, so I had more time to focus on my business, and it made such a massive impact. That then got a little bit trickier when we went into, maybe was it second lockdown? I forget what happened when.
They merge
now
into one, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And then my eldest by that point was in reception class, so now I did have to homeschool, and that was really tricky. So I'd get up early of a morning and I'd work kind of 5 or 6 a.m. through to about 7ish when the boys got up, sort their breakfast out, and then I'd carry on working whilst they were all having breakfast. And then by the time we kind of finished around 9ish, I was then into homeschool mode, which really took us all day. So I had to be really structured with my time at that point so that I wasn't letting him down, making sure that he wasn't falling behind in his learning, but also keeping on top of now a very busy business, and large engaged groups that I had. So it got a lot trickier. And, now they're back at school, I have bigger pockets of windows where I can work. But yeah, for me, from a client point of view, there was so much more need now to be able to access somebody, that, I'm in my group 5 days a week. I do lots of Q&A sessions. I give away within that group a lot of free content to help people, particularly over the last year, that have been made redundant, or even if they've gone on to maternity pay, which is awful, maternity pay. So what my clients were able to access at a paid level changed. So I've been trying to give a lot of free content in my group so that I'm still able to help an awful lot of people, even if they can't work with me one-to-one or on a group basis. But yeah, the people's well-being took a massive hit during all of these lockdowns. And it was important to me that I was very visible during that time so that they knew I was there and would continue to be there. And I think as much as people really miss those face-to-face sessions, there's still a lot of uncertainty about how safe pregnant women particularly feel going back into those situations. So yeah, I've grown no end, going from thinking I'm just going to close my doors until COVID blows over, to where I'm at right now the growth has just been amazing. Going online is something that I always wanted to do before COVID hit, and I never was brave enough, I guess, to take the step in case I was doing myself out of, people that wanted face-to-face stuff. And I obviously got pushed into an online space because of COVID, and I will continue now to stay in an online space because I can just help so many more people. And there's so much need out there now, even as we start coming out of all these restrictions and life maybe eventually returns to some kind of normal. I think it's going to take pre and postnatal women a very long time to get back into a more positive headspace because they've had to deal with so much over that time. So yeah, for me, the growth has been amazing. And it's been an honor really for me to be a part of so many people's journeys. I went from helping probably 50 couples a year, or 50 mums a year, to, I think this year so far, I've worked with, through my workshops and my courses, probably nearly 700 people already this year. And to be able to provide that service for so many people in an online space, which I think people are growing more accustomed to, it's just been amazing for me to be able to be there for so many people through such a ridiculous set of circumstances that we never ever could have predicted.
It's amazing. I think the growth that you've seen, but I think a lot of that is because you saw what your audience was needing and you were quick to take action on that and not use it as an opportunity to take advantage. It was an opportunity for you to help. And by doing that, by providing stuff that they actually needed, you've gone on to see massive business growth from that, and do it in a way that is really intentional and really focused, in a way that's worked for you from a family life. Yes, it's meant, some early mornings and some juggles and stuff, but there is definitely a way to do things, isn't there? If there is, for one, you've got to have the customer need, you've got to have that client need that's out there, but you've got to provide the stuff that they're actually looking for. And I think that combination of the two, showing up, being consistent, being super visible, enables for you to build that like, know, and trust, because obviously there's a lot of new people that have come into your world. So you've kind of broadened your audience just as much as helping those people that need you at the time. And I think what's interesting about your business as well, and especially within that sort of pregnancy space, is that there is only a short window where you can help people to a certain extent. Yes, you've got the sort of pre-phase and sort of maternal well-being, which again, you've built something to help people with that too. But I think, a lot of people think, especially within that pregnancy space, well, I've only got, a few months where I can help people. I'm just going to close my doors and I'll get the new lot of people when all the COVID kind of blows over. But what I love about the action taking that you took is that you're like, actually, if I'm proactive, I can have that ripple effect and I can help so many more people by shifting how I do things and using what's gone on in the world as an opportunity to shift your business. And, it's so easy, isn't it? Fear of change is one of those biggest things that we all go through because we don't know what it's going to be. But actually, not doing anything is worse than doing something and just trying it, because the knock-on effect can be incredible. And the impact, 700 couples, and we're recording this in the middle of June, so not even halfway through the year yet, based on sort of 50 beforehand. The percentage increase in that is phenomenal. So not only should you be super proud of yourself, but I think just, for people listening, knowing that actually it is possible, you can see growth in your business in a healthy way by helping other people, looking at what your customer needs. And I think, again, we're talking about this sort of extending the customer journey as well, the recognizing actually mums are going to need even more support after giving birth, and that sort of maternal well-being side of things wasn't something that you were currently offering in the way that you are. So I want to delve into that a little bit more, because not only the world has changed, so people need things in a different way, but actually how they access information is totally different. So yeah, I want to tell us a little bit more about what you're doing to help postnatal and maternal well-being.
So I've got now my maternal wellbeing hub membership, which I launched in May. So yeah, just last month, which is an online membership. We have a Facebook group where we're communicating on a day-to-day basis. And then I will have, as standard, a monthly Q&A or training session from myself, and also 2 guest expert speakers that come into the group to deliver additional trainings that are outside of my area of expertise. However, because the membership is in its infancy at the moment, since it launched, we have had a different guest expert speaker every single week, just to really help, because there's so much going on with the mums that are in my membership, just to help address a lot of the issues that they're going through right now. And then we'll revert back to the standard kind of 2 monthly one. So yeah, I've got my wellbeing membership. And I also do an 8-week one-to-one emotional health and wellbeing course as well, which is specifically for mums suffering from anxiety, panic attacks, depression, insomnia, tocophobia, which is an actual diagnosed fear of birth. So whatever is kind of presenting to those mums, it takes them through 8 different sessions where they're able to find their own unique formula for overcoming their anxiety-based symptoms. So it's an amazing program. It's genuinely life-changing. I work with women that have been dealing with anxiety for years and years and years, to a point where they just think this is just a part of who I am, and I'm always going to feel this way and always going to think this way. And they might have gone off already and done different therapies that have given them kind of short-term relief of their symptoms. But then after a while, those symptoms tend to creep back in again. This particular program, because it puts them in charge of making the changes and identifying what's going on at a root cause, they're able to start understanding the thought processes they go through and where that anxiety is being triggered, so that they can start making changes, which gives them long-lasting change from those symptoms. So it's an amazing program. I tend to do it one-to-one because it's so in-depth, and a lot of it is so personal to the women that I'm dealing with. But yeah, it puts them in the driving seat. I help to facilitate the change for them, but ultimately they're the ones that are doing the work, because a lot of other therapies can help alleviate the symptoms of anxiety. But what I'm looking at with my mums is the root cause of where that anxiety has come from. Because if you don't understand where it's coming from or what that root cause is, it's impossible to overcome it. If you're only ever dealing with the symptoms, a bit like pain relief, I suppose. If you're in pain and you take paracetamol, it gets rid of the pain, but it's not getting rid of the reason that's causing the pain in the first place. So it's always going to keep coming back. So we're looking at root cause issues. So the transition I see in people as we go through that program is amazing. That all of a sudden they realize all of these negative core beliefs they have about themselves, which largely have come from what other people have said to them that they've internalized, like I said earlier. And this just negative internal commentary we've got running all the time about our ability to give birth, our ability to be a mum, all kinds of different things, that when that's the only voice that we're listening to on a day-to-day basis, then your emotional health, your emotional resilience is just through the floor. And you're also obviously in a period where your body's changing, your hormones are all over the place. You've maybe gone from being a career woman to now being a stay-at-home mum, and that can be a really difficult transition to make for a lot of people. So there's an awful lot going on in a relatively intense period of time. So yeah, I help people either through my membership or doing one-to-one sessions, just so that they can truly understand what's going on at a subconscious level and start overcoming that, so that they can live a more balanced life. And that doesn't mean that they won't ever experience anxiety again, that they won't ever be worried about something or doubt themselves. What it means is that they've got the tools that when they hit those little bumps in the road, because there's always going to be something in life that sets you back a little bit, that they now have tools to be able to overcome those bumps, rather than those bumps being more like a stop sign and then everything else goes out the window and they just stay rooted in one place. It helps them to be able to navigate those changes to birth paths or changes to your identity afterwards, whatever it might be. They've got the tools. They might still get triggered, that anxiety might still come, but they can get themselves back out of it much, much quicker. And giving them that control. Most things, whether I'm working pre or postnatally, most worries or concerns or phobias or doubts that my women have will largely come down to feeling out of control. And through my well-being, through my membership and through my sessions, it gives them that control back. And once you feel in control of what's going on in your journey, everything else kind of slots into place behind that. So it's such an important concept for them to be able to get their heads around, is that they are the driving force behind everything else that happens. They just need to know how to be that driving force.
It's such a life-changing thing, I think. And, becoming a mum is life-changing, but I think what you're doing, it becomes life-changing in a positive thought perspective, because whatever happens during birth, you then have this little baby that you've got to look after, and they naturally do become the priority. But I'm a big believer, whether it's running a business, whether it's looking after children, you can't help the people that you want to unless you're looked after yourself as well. And that sort of mental health care is just as important as physical health care. And I think it's all part of this self-care word that gets bandied around so much. And it's so important. And I think kind of bringing that back to, whatever it is that you then go on to do, whether it's being a stay-at-home mum, whether it's returning back to work, whether it's leaving corporate world and setting up your own business, having that toolkit, knowing what's going to help you, because there's always going to be bits and pieces that are thrown at us. You know, the world is ever changing, different things happen, our kids get older, different things come up, and we need to have that toolkit. We need to be able to not just recognize what's going on, but also knowing how to clear it, so we can clear it as quickly as possible to then move on in a positive way, in a healthy way. So I want to kind of, I guess, wrap this up a little bit with some top tips. So if there were kind of 3 top tips, whether it's for mums juggling business life, whether it's new mums thinking, oh my goodness, what's going on, what would be your 3 top tips for a healthy, you know, running a healthy life with or without a business?
I would say probably the first one would be, don't do it alone. And I feel like whether it's running a business or being a mum, it can feel quite lonely sometimes, but kind of find your tribe, find the people that are going to support you to achieve the things that you want to achieve. And it's okay to ask for help. You know, we're not, particularly in business, we're not masters of everything, which is, you know, one of the reasons I'm working with you. Marketing's not my thing. You know, there's lots of components that go into running a business for me that I do, but I know they're not that's not my talent zone, you know. So don't do it alone. Don't be afraid to ask for help and to reach out and be parts of, whether it's masterminds or Facebook groups or whatever, where you're around other people that want the same things as you and you're all cheering each other on. And it's much the same for mums, like find your mum group. I remember having my firstborn and somebody saying to me, have you made mum friends? And I was like, I've got friends, like I don't need new ones. But I didn't realize the power of having mum friends that have got kids the same age as yours, in that when you're having a really rough day or a rough night, that you've got other people around you that are just like, yeah, me too. And you're like, oh, it's not just me, because it feels like I'm doing everything alone and wrong. So having that tribe of people around you that are heading in the same direction you are is just so empowering in itself. So that would definitely be my top one. I guess from a business point of view as well, I would say, which has become really clear for me over the last year, is know who it is that you want to serve. So when I first set up my business, I guess I kind of thought like, well, there's loads of pregnant people out there. I set up my main Facebook page and just assumed people would find me because, you know, you search for it on Facebook and here I am. But it took me a very long time to get really clear and specific on who it was I wanted to work with or who it was I could help the most. So I think that's if I could go back in time and start again, that would be one of the first things that I put in place, is not just to be trying to appeal generically to pregnant women, because then your messaging's wrong in your advertising and your marketing. And you end up really not attracting anyone because you're not saying anything different or speaking to their pain points. And over the last year, that I think that has been the catalyst for my growth, is that all of a sudden I knew who it was I was talking to. And it's predominantly for me overly anxious mums and or second-time mums that have already had a very negative birth experience and they've got that real life experience that's causing them anxiety. And just by having that dedicated focus in the posts that I put out and the lives that I do, just means that when people do come across my page, they're either like, oh my God, you know, she totally gets me, this is who I am, or I'm totally not for them, and that's fine because they're somebody else's ideal client. But in trying to appeal to the masses, you actually end up appealing to nobody at all.
It's music to my ears.
Yeah. And it's a scary thing, I think, to niche down, because you think, well, surely I'm putting people off and I'm losing business if I'm deliberately repelling people. But I just didn't see it for such a long time, that when you're so generic, you're just not really saying anything at all. So you're not attracting anyone in the end. So yeah, that would be one of my massive things, more business focused. And I guess just being visible as well. Particularly these days, we're moving more and more into video marketing, aren't we? And it being you being the face of the brand, people don't necessarily just want to see box standard posts and lovely designed features or whatever. So being visible has been a big thing for me again since COVID hit. I'm in my group all the time, I'm on my stories all the time, so that people constantly know that you're there. And people, I always forget this phrase, people buy from people, they don't buy from brands. So people will buy into me essentially if I'm on my page all the time and they can listen to what I'm saying, even if what I'm saying is the same as what I would have written in a post. If they feel like they click with me and that they like what I say, then they're more likely to seek your support and to get in contact and join your groups and everything else. So yeah, it's just having the confidence. And I know that was such a big hurdle for me to get over, was to start going live and being on my stories, because I kind of thought to start with that people don't want to know about me, but actually, particularly in the world that I work in, being able to share with my audience about my own birth experiences and my own well-being journeys, it helps make everything else I do more relatable when they know that I've been there and I've done that and I've experienced the same things that they're going through. And they're not going to get that from just a generic post on your main grid. So visibility has been a huge thing for me over the last year. So yeah, I think they're probably my main learnings actually since COVID hit, is not doing it alone. So joining your mastermind has been amazing because you're with other people that are going through the same things. And sometimes what I really find comforting in being in part of those groups is when you look at other business people doing their thing, it's very easy sometimes to think, God, they're so much further on than me, or they're doing so much better than I am. And then once you come into these groups and you soon start realizing that, I mean, yeah, they might be doing better, but we all have to get over the same hurdles and the same barriers and the same self-sabotage sometimes that comes into play. And just that, a bit like with having your mum friends and being like, oh, I'm glad it's not just me having a rubbish night, that you can see other people that are further down the line than you thinking, oh, okay, they're still trying to navigate these obstacles the same as I am. It's not that I'm doing it wrong. It's just, this is what happens when you run a business. So yeah, not doing it alone, knowing who you want to serve and being visible, I'd say are the three things that have really propelled me since March of last year. And yeah, if I could go back in time and put them in place 5 years ago when I first started, then I could be so much further on. But it's always a journey, isn't it?
It is always a journey. And I think, it's celebrating the stuff you have done rather than kind of regretting stuff or wishing, because actually during that time where you think you've regretted stuff, you've done other things or you've learned other things, which has enabled you to help people in a slightly different way. And I think, not comparing yourself to others. We are all on a journey. We're all, every single level, however, even if you grow and you hit your income targets, the next target that you go for, that brings up a whole load of other, whether it's mindset stuff or whether it's, the need to outsource and get a team. There's so many different things that as you continue to grow and develop personally as well as business wise, there's always new stuff that comes up. So being surrounded by a group of people and working with people who are, a few steps ahead of you, or can be really motivating because you can learn from them, but also working, in a group of people where someone's potentially a few steps behind you, that you can then share your knowledge and experience. And that is that, as you said, whether it's a mum tribe, whether it's a business tribe of girls or guys, it's the importance of having people who get what you're doing, why you're doing it, but are on that journey and understand why. Because you can pick each other up when you're having a down day, you can lift each other up and celebrate in a different way, I think, that family and friends outside of business can, because they're not living and breathing it in the same way. They don't necessarily have the same juggles. So yeah, I can totally resonate with that. And I think, going back to that visibility piece, people do buy from people. It's one of the biggest things that, or probably one of the biggest misconceptions, is that you can just put out generic stuff and people people wonder why they're not getting clients. They want to know you. They want to see that empathy. They want to see that understanding. Maybe they resonate, even just the tone of your voice, the sound of your voice. That can be a huge turn on or turn off for people as well. And that's okay. We don't want to attract everybody. We want to help as many people as we can, but we want to help the right people for us, because that brings the enjoyment to running a business. And I think that's what we're all striving to do, is not just help people, but enjoy running it. It's one of the reasons we set up our own business, is to enjoy it, have that flexibility and freedom. So yeah, some amazing tips there. Thank you for sharing them. I've loved chatting to you today. I think there's so many different things that we could have carried on talking about as well, and conscious of everyone's time. And hope you've got a lot of value from me chatting to Ria today. If people are listening to you and they're either pregnant or they want to reach out to you from a maternal wellbeing perspective, where's the best place to find you?
So Facebook or Instagram, I'm very active on both. Obviously at the Simple Birth Company. Yeah, they're my main two. Or my website is www.thesimpleBirthCompany.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope you've enjoyed listening to us as well. And I will see you on the next show.